Hi, everybody. Welcome to first seminar today here at the Southern Pinball Festival. Thanks for coming. My name is Brian Dominy, and we're going to talk a little bit about the work that I've been doing with this new pinball company called Heighway Pinball. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing as a company, what some of the goals are. They're a European pinball manufacturer, so for the U.S. market, a lot of people are not too familiar with what's going on. So I'll try to give you a little bit of background about what's been happening. Some of you may have gone to the Chicago Pinball Expo. If so, you've heard some of this before. But I'm also going to talk a little bit more about my involvement with the team, specifically what I've been doing. I'm a computer software programmer. I've been doing that for nearly 20 years now professionally. So, you know, there's like two passions that I have in life. It's pinball and software. So, you know, those are the two things that I enjoy the most. And so it was always kind of a goal of mine to figure out, is there a way that I can bring these two things together and do something that involves both of them at the same time. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background with that. You know, I've been attending pinball tournaments for a long time. The first pinball show I ever attended was back in 1993. I was in college, and you know, just decided to jump in the car one day and drive 10 hours to a pinball show. So I've been doing this for a long time. It never gets old. It's still a lot of fun. That's why I come to shows like this one. You know, the way I started getting involved with pinball software, I mean, as a player, as a tournament player, you look at pinball games and you really start to see the depth and the complexity that goes into making them. And you really develop an appreciation for what it takes to make these games work. And as a software person myself, I was, you know, you just wonder how these things happen. You ask questions, you know, how do they do that? Why do they do that? You know, I was the kid who always, you know, got a new toy for Christmas and took it apart to figure out how it worked inside. So, so it's kind of the same thing with pinball. I mean, you get your first pinball game and you open it up and you want to know what's inside of it and how it works. And you know, it's becoming very common these days. A lot of people are doing this. They're modding their games. They're adding things on. They're changing this and that. And but when I started doing this a long time ago, there wasn't as much of that going on. So, but it's good to see that other people have the same passion and enjoyment of that sort of thing. So, to take you back a little bit, before Heighway Pinball, which I'll get to a little bit later, you know, I said I wanted to figure out how I can do a project with pinball and software together. So that actually started back in 2005. I created this project called FreeWPC, and the idea was basically to take a WPC pinball game and reprogram the software for it. So take out everything that was there and just start from scratch. Other people had tried similar things. People were doing these quick little hacks to their game to change, you know, put a little hi mom message in there. You know, it was like, no, I don't want to do that. That's too easy. And I want to actually know how these things work from ground zero. So. But I didn't know anything about the computer hardware. So that was another thing I should say, is I wasn't replacing the computer hardware in these games. I wanted to reuse what was already in them. So if you are familiar with the, you know, WPC Williams Bally pinball games from the 90s, they run on very limited computer hardware. They have a 2 megahertz processor, which is insanely slow. And ridiculously small amount of memory. I mean, there's a technical challenge to getting this to do anything, to get it to just come on and flash a light, which was the first thing that I made it do. So so I had a lot of learning to do. I had to learn how these games worked, these particular machines worked. And every pinball manufacturer has done different things with their games. And now I see, you know, Stern does different things, and the older Bally's did different things. But you know, I had to figure out, because I had a WPC game in my house, And that was what I had to work with, so I had to understand these things. That was another one of the goals of the project. Was I didn't want to spend a lot of money on new hardware equipment. I wanted to use exactly what I had. Primarily, well, partially because of cost, but primarily because I'm not a hardware person at all. So a lot of you guys who work on games and fix games, like, I can't do any of that, okay? I can appreciate it, and I love to see it, but I am so bad at fixing games. So anything that involved like ripping wires out and replacing it with something else, that was going to be doomed. There's no way that was going to work. So I learned a lot about how the games work, and then it was a question of, well, how do I actually write software for these things? I've heard people from Williams talk about how they develop games, and they will claim that they wrote all the games in assembly language, which if you know any programming is like, it's a step above flipping switches on a board. I mean, it is so low level and tedious. For like the first 6 months of the project, that's what I was doing. I was writing in assembly language, and then I said, man, this is not fun. I mean, it took all the fun out of it. It had gotten to the point where it was work, and like, is there any way that I can make this easier on myself? Well, eventually, yes, I did. But in the process, I created more work for myself, because I decided I program in the C++ languages for the work that I do outside of pinball. And I always thought, well, if I can just write it in C, it'll be a lot easier. If you're not a programmer, it's a more friendly way of writing out what you want the game to do. So the problem was that the computers in these games there's no freely available C compiler that you can use to do this. So I looked around. I looked around forever to find something, and couldn't find anything. There were companies that used to do this, but they went out of business because this processor was almost 30 years old by this point. So I did the next best thing. I wrote my own compiler. So I took about a year off from doing pinball coding and worked on a compiler. So that was an entirely separate project that I won't bore you with the details on. But I had some training in how to do this from my education in school, so it wasn't that bad, but it was a lot of work. So back to pinball. Once I had done that, I was finally able to like recode a lot of these things that I had done in a very friendly, easy way, and suddenly it became fun again, because now I could actually think of, like, I could think about what I wanted the game to do, and I could just write it, and very naturally, and it would do it. It was fun again. So I spent maybe a couple of years in my spare time. You know what spare time is, right? It's we have too much of it. And got this to a point where it was actually pretty cool. And I put it into my game. I have a World Cup Soccer from 1994 game, and I put the code in, and I'm like, oh boy, this is the moment of truth. Let's turn it on and see what it does. And sure enough, turned it on, lamps started flashing, messages came up on the display, no smoke came out. I swear, I actually like looked up to see where the fire extinguisher was in the house, just in case something went wrong. So, but it worked, because I had spent, I'd spent a lot of time on it, and I was pretty sure it was going to work, and it did. So this was a hobby. This is how I got into the pinball programming hobby. And I put this out there for other people to play with, and other people have used the work that I've done in homebrew projects of their own. And there's been some really cool stuff that's come out of it. My goal was never to produce a new game, something finished. It was just to learn about how pinball games work. There was never an end goal. And so after some time, I got bored with that and decided to go do other things, and put it on the shelf. And then last year, I got a call from Andrew Heighway. I had no idea who Andrew Heighway was. he said that he was starting a new pinball company in the UK, and he needed someone to do software for him. Okay, that's interesting. Why are you calling me? I live in the US. He wanted to know if I could work with him part-time. So I'm still doing my other job, my real job. But he wanted to know if I could do some consulting for him to get off the ground, to design the software that would be used for his games. He already had a playfield by the time I talked to him, but he had no code. So we talked for a few weeks and figured out an arrangement where I would help him out, and also we were able to reuse some of the code that I had done on the free WPC project. So it was like, why rewrite something that's already working if we can just reuse it? So he wondered if that was okay, because for legal and business reasons, and we worked through that. We've got to a point where that's totally cool. So we had that in the bag, and but then it was a matter of, well, this isn't going to be on a WPC. We're doing a new everything, and we'll talk a little bit more later about what the company is doing, and they're doing some pretty cool stuff. So I've continued to work with them over the last year on changing the software, which is their software now, and it's the Heighway Pinball platform software, to support what they're doing, and so we'll talk about that now. Oh, I should add, the wonderful people from Papa are here. It was on my flight to Pinburg, 2012, was when I wrote the first code for Heighway Pinball game. I was, got nothing better to do, and you're already thinking about pinball all weekend, so that's where it all officially started. So let's talk a little bit about Heighway Pinball now and what they're doing. John, do you want to flip the... So this is the factory and the warehouse that they've built. This is in Wales. Andrew is a businessman from England, but he set up a factory in Wales. And it's a pretty large facility, as you can see. Go to the next picture. This is the first game that we're doing. It's called Full Throttle. Has anybody here seen or heard of Full Throttle? A few people? Okay. The original theme for the game was going to be different. It was going to be a Greek mythology game called Circe's Animal House. But we decided that, well, we would tell people that, and the reaction would be, oh, that's interesting, or what is that? Or, you kind of got these strange looks from a lot of people. Now, a lot of us, actually, there's a lot of people that love it, and it was going to be a really cool idea. But we put that on the shelf for game number one, because we wanted to put something that was a little more predictable, and for the general pinball audience to understand. So we actually took the playfield and re-themed it. So not many changes to the playfield itself to turn it into Full Throttle. This is another picture of the factory right after it was purchased, and after a little bit of cleaning, although it's still not evident in this picture. These pictures are from a few months ago, so it's a lot better now. But you see here we have the space to do this right, and this is not just a couple of guys in the garage making games. I mean, we've got a big facility. We're going to have an assembly line. We're going to be churning out games as fast as people want them. Behind the scenes, if you talk about the staffing on the project, there's, I'm consulting on the software. I'm not a full-time employee for Heighway Pinball, so standard disclaimer: what I say may not be true. I do not represent Heighway Pinball, but it's me and three other guys doing software. So we got 4 people on software now. And we've got a mechanical engineer full-time. We've got people doing artwork. So this is a big deal. There's a lot of people involved and want to make this work. This was one of the original artwork designs for the back box on the game. We've changed the artwork a few times. This is not what you'll see on the final game. This is one of the early pictures of the playfield. The artwork is really not present here. This is very early sketches. But you can see a little bit about the playfield layout, and it's got a lot of flow to it. I'll tell you that. There's a lot of interesting shots on this playfield. One of the most interesting is this. There's this loop shot on the right side that loops the ball back around into the left out lane, and then it flies through a gate back to the left flipper, and it's very smooth and it's very fast. All the orbits are really fast. There's going to be diverters at the tops of the orbits so we can control the ball flow. Crisscrossing ramps. There's some other things on here. You see the 4 holes in the center of the playfield. Those are going to be populated by spinning wheels. If you think of Circus Voltaire with the pop-up pop bumper, but instead of a pop bumper, imagine like a Stern Orbiter 1, really fast wheel. So those things will be able to pop up at various points in the game, and they're strategically placed so that they will block certain shots, and they will kind of create a funnel for a couple of the other shots that you have to shoot through them in order to make the shot. So that's gives you a little bit of punishment if you miss your shot a little bit. It's going to go crazy. This is a picture of the cabinet. The cabinet is still being worked on a little bit, but this is pretty close to the final form, I think. It's going to be a very sleek design. Notice that there's nothing in the back box as far as scoring. There's no DMD. There's no video display in the back. All of that is actually in the playfield. I don't know if you'll see that in some of the upcoming pictures as well. This is just another picture of the. We did some drawings in SolidWorks. Here's a good picture of the display in the center of the playfield. This is something I want to talk a little bit about because one of the things that Heighway Pinball is trying to do differently from some of the other pinball manufacturers is we really are trying to make a game that is friendly to beginning pinball players. So we're aiming to make games that are easy to understand, that don't have as much complexity, where you just see like everything is running, everything is flashing, and I have no idea what I should be doing. And putting the display at the bottom was one of those decisions that we wanted for people who don't know what to do. If there's things on the display, if a beginner player is not going to be looking at the display. I see this all the time. They're looking at the flippers because they don't want to lose the ball. So we're going to try this, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback on this so far. That you can actually kind of watch and gauge your progress in the game at the same time that you're looking at the flippers. Similar things have been tried in the past, but I think we're the first ones to actually try it like this for the main display. Going after the beginner market also means that we're trying to get games in street locations again. So we want to get games in restaurants, bars. We're certainly targeting home players as well, because that's, you guys are the bread and butter of pinball right now and keeping it alive. But we need to get more people involved and get it out there in new places. So designing games that are not going to turn people off from pinball, but really attract them in, is really one of our design goals. And everything we do, kind of, when we have a question about how to do something, that goes back to that issue. Is a beginner player going to appreciate this? Go on to the next one. This is another picture of the playfield. You can see that it has gone from Hulk green to ruby red. So all of the lamps in the game are RGB LEDs, all of them. What you would think of as GI, all of the other playfield inserts. So there's going to be a lot of lamps, a lot of brightness in this game. It's going to get people's attention when you walk by it. Oh, there's the Hulk green I was talking about. So we can really use the, we're going to use the lamp coloring as another way of indicating to the player what they should be doing. So if you've got all these different features running, you can kind of look at the colors to help you figure out what you should be doing, what means what. It's another early drawing. I think that's all the photos. We have a gameplay video we can show now, which was recorded at the German Pinball Open a few months ago, and Andrew Heighway, who was the founder and president of the company, this was posted to Pinball News, so some of you may have seen this before, but it kind of gives you a feeling about how the game plays and what it looks like in action. So we'll take a look at that now. If you guys have any questions at any point here in the audience or online, if you want to submit questions, please do so. Eric? Okay. Eric, you want to go ahead and ask your question? You can.
I have a couple questions. My first question is there was talk on Pinball News and elsewhere that there was going to be like an LE version where the playfield glass and the act as the display itself. Is that still on the table or not? You want to repeat the question?
Yeah. The question was about a special LE version of the game, which was going to have a special playfield glass that was going to allow for images to be displayed in the glass instead of the monitor inset into the playfield. So the answer is yes, it's still on the table, but it will not be for the first game. There's some challenges that we have to address to get that to work. The technology is pretty solid. There's some other games out there that are using this. Some of the slot machines in Vegas are doing this now. And it's a very cool effect. We have to, I think there's a very specialized crowd that is going to want that. Probably for the street locations that we're going after, the cost involved with that, I mean, that's an expensive piece of glass. So that's not our primary focus right now. We want to get the game out so people can see what we're doing, and then we'll look at that for one of the future titles. The biggest challenge with that, by the way, is actually in the lighting, because the glass itself doesn't provide the light. The light has to come from the playfield lamps underneath. And so you have to really boost up the intensity of the lamps, but not to the point where the player can't see the ball anymore. So this is kind of we have to figure out how to get that to work right.
And my other question was, you guys already have possible distributors lined up and price in mind, or is that still ways away?
Yeah, the question is about distributors and pricing. I should start by saying I'm not the salesperson. I'm not even a full-time employee, so I probably shouldn't give you specifics on that sort of thing, but it is in the works. I think you'll be pleased with the pricing once you see it. It's not going to be ridiculous. It's going to be more on par with what I think people are looking for, especially beginner pinball players. At least I hope so. And as far as distributors goes, even though it's a UK company, they are going to partner with people in the US for distribution. So you should be able to get your hands on one over here. Another thing that we're going to do is try to actually do kind of a split manufacturing process where the final assembly happens in the United States. So we'll build the playfields in the UK, ship those over here, and put them in cabinets in the US. That'll cut down on our costs to ship the games over here tremendously, because we're not shipping 300-pound games. This is a big problem for people in Europe right now who buy games from US manufacturers. They have to pay a huge, premium on getting the game shipped over to Europe. So the Europeans are loving that there's a company over there. But we're going to do it in such a way that it's still going to work for the US. And we're trying to target all over the world. It's not even just US and UK. I mean, so many countries are involved now. You guys like the video? Yeah, it does play very fast.
Can you explain the side art and what you were telling me before about replacing it?
Yeah. The question is about the side art, and I didn't mention this before. Another one of the things that we're doing differently is These games are actually going to be swappable in the cabinets. So if you buy the first game and then you decide you want to buy the second game, you have the option to just buy the playfield for the second game, and then an art package. So you can actually swap out the playfield and the side art. The way the cabinet is designed, the art slides in. It's not printed onto the wood. So you can just slide those in and out. And they'll be protected in such a way so that, you know, people can't scribble on the, you know, the plastic covering on the outside. So that's gonna drop the prices quite a bit for people who want to buy a lot of games but maybe don't have a lot of space, or if you're a distributor and you know you don't like this game, you want to get the next game, you can switch it out for a lot less. We have a question from online.
Yeah, they want to know about the screen in the center of the playfield. Has there been precautions taken against scratching?
I believe so. I don't know the specifics on that. The question was about scratching on the playfield where the display is. I know there's some sort of covering on that, and I don't know the details about it, I'm afraid. Yes.
So the hardware, is it PC-based, or?
Yeah, the hardware that we're using is all it is oh, you could call it PC based. I mean, it's a more modern computer architecture, running a Linux operating system. So the CPU is kind of from an off-the-shelf vendor. The I/O boards that are connecting to all the pinball hardware, that's all custom built stuff that we're doing. Yes.
Since you mentioned that you're looking to change out the playfield, besides the case, is the computer going to stay in the case as well?
Yes. The computer and the monitor stay with the cabinet, so you don't need to purchase those again.
You would program a USB stick or?
Something like that. I don't know exactly how the update is going to work yet. We're trying out a few different options, but that's most likely how it's going to work. Yes.
Will it be like a crowdfunding thing, like a Kickstarter program for the first game or something like that, or?
No. So the question was, is there going to be a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding sort of effort to fund this? Right now, I mean, this is what's amazing about this, is that we haven't taken pre-orders from anybody. I mean, this is all self-funded at the moment. Andrew has put a lot of his own money into this, and he's gotten, you know, other private investors who believe in the future of the company to help out with that. We believe that you should be able to buy the game once you see it and once you know what it is. So. Yes.
You mentioned that the back of the board is basically done. For the home version, could you shrink that down like Stern did with its Transformer game?
Well, we want to be careful about this. The question is about the back box and the size of it and the fact that there's not much in there. I mean, there are lights in there. There's going to be a lot of lights in the back box. We feel that we need to have the back box there in order to get people's attention that there's a game. You know, if it's in a bar or a restaurant and it's just a flat table, it's not really going to stand out. So.
I was thinking more for the home, because you said you're looking to go both ways. Maybe for the home version, somebody like me, I've got very little room. Something like this would be sweet, but it's got to be scaled down.
It's interesting. I haven't thought about that. Perhaps. I mean, we're looking really to offer people options and to allow people to customize the games in, you know, ways that make sense for them. So I think we would entertain that idea.
Your pinball-specific hardware, did you reinvent everything, or did you use Valley Williams, or what?
Oh, like the coils and the flippers? It's all being redone. Custom. One of the things I can talk about, the flippers are going to be really interesting. The flipper mechanisms, custom made, they completely, the entire flipper assembly, top and bottom of the playfield, are one piece. Okay? One of the photos, you can see there's actually a giant hole in the playfield that looks like a flipper. So if you have a bad flipper and you want to change it out and you're in a bar and you can't see because it's dark, okay, you just bring another flipper assembly and you pop the old one out, plug it in, and you're good to go. You don't have to worry about soldering wires and disconnecting. There's like a plastic, or I think it's a nylon insert that'll be flush with the playfield, so you don't have to worry about playfield wear right around where the hole is. Any other questions now?
When do you think it's going to be out?
Question is about availability. We have said various dates in the past, and those dates have passed on. We're now looking at early 2014, so not very far in the future. And I can tell you from what I know, where we're at, it feels like we're very close. We've always kind of erred on the side of caution when we thought we were close, and we thought, we're almost there, and then something would happen that, this isn't right. Let's get this right. We don't want to put the first game out and have it suffer from all kinds of problems. So we've pushed the date back and until the time is right. But when it's ready, you'll know. You'll hear about it. Yes.
As far as, I guess, serviceability is something that, we're concerned with. How would that work, down the line? Would it be making your own coils, making your own assemblies?
Yeah, the question is about serviceability and the fact that so much of this is custom and new. We are working with a lot of people who have done this sort of thing before, so we feel pretty good that the quality is going to be there. But we'll. Absolutely, and that that has to be expected. But we're putting these things through the proper engineering tests. It's not that we're just making these things and slapping them in the cabinet and saying that it's ready. Okay, so we're following a standard, an industry standard engineering practice. I didn't know when I started programming that how much work you actually spend coding things that players never see. Like writing diagnostics and writing a flipper test that flips the flipper for 72 hours. Just to make sure that it stays together. So,
But there will be spare parts and things like that.
absolutely. I mean, the warehouse that you saw in the photo earlier, it's going to be stocked with spares of everything.
So if I need to order anything, I'll have to do it directly.
Or we'll set something up in the U.S. so for people here that it's a little bit easier. Probably for the most common parts, we'll have those on hand in the U.S. I'm sorry. Yes.
The flipper idea is brilliant. I actually thought of the same thing way back in the 70s. I went out right. Flipper repair on location is a possibility or something. Have you thought about doing the same thing with pop bumpers?
To my knowledge, that has not been discussed, but I mean, it seems like it's the same principle, right? The only thing I would think of is, maybe the flippers are a little more complicated mechanism, and they're heavily used. But pop bumpers are heavily used too, so I mean, they probably, yeah, that might be something we look at. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. The question was about replacing pop bumpers in a similar way to the flippers to have a single assembly that pops out. So yeah, we haven't looked at that at the moment, as far as I know, but it's a good question. So I just want to say a few things about my role in the process, and then I'm done. And then if you have any more questions, that's cool. What are the challenges that I have to deal with working on this project? What are the things that are the most challenging and frustrating at times, but also most rewarding when you get it to work? So there's nothing like seeing a pinball game actually like turn on and work. All those, you get so focused on details when you're working on this sort of thing, and you spend hours and hours on making that lamp shine just right. And you know, and there's hundreds and thousands of things like that you do. But it's good to be able to step away from it and actually see the whole finished product. And it's just an awesome, awesome thing. And as a player, to be able to step up to it and play the game and not think about all this sort of thing. You know, I've done so much programming, but yet here at the show, I can step up to any of these games and get immersed in playing them. And I'm not even thinking about, you know, oh, they had to do that to make that work. And it's like, I know all of that. I know all of what it takes to make these things happen, but you just kind of get lost in the game. And that's what it's all about. It's about making a fun game. And sometimes I also get, you know, distracted and thinking about, well, I need to do this, I need to do that, and then, well, is that fun? You always have to ask yourself that question, is it fun? If it looks cool, okay, that can be fun, that it looks cool, or it feels right. Sometimes the most complicated things, or the things that take the most amount of work to do, and you feel good, oh, I did this, but in the end, nobody thinks it's fun. So really, that's really what's going to drive this whole thing. The fact that I'm in the U.S. and they're in the U.K. has been a challenge, but I will say we've made it work pretty well. A lot of early morning and late night phone calls. Everyone, myself and the people over there, have been very flexible and allowing me to be a part of the team given those circumstances. So I thank them for giving me the opportunity because, you know, like I said at the beginning, this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and you know, it's finally happened, so I'm very grateful for that. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.